make sense.
Mhm.
And people who are prepared to step into that path, they will always make it to the other side. We saw that movie in The Matrix about that.
Mhm.
We'll always make it. It's just there's a lot of fear around that, and it takes courage to break away from that fear. And the easiest way of avoiding that is through laziness.
Mhm.
Just say no, but you cannot make someone do that. Only they can make themselves do that. And eventually, spirit will get bored. The metaphor I use, I say, we've given you the information. Well, we've brought all these knockoff spirits to you over and over. You still haven't answered the call. We're withdrawing. There's others who need to walk this path.
Mhm.
We'll still have unconditional love, unconditional support. But when you're ready for that calling again, let us know. And normally that happens when there's crisis, and we're going full circle again, back to the collective crisis we're seeing in the US and the world today. That is awakening the calling to say, what do we do? Who are we as a species? What does it actually mean to be human as a human family? Are we here because I don't like the news that you follow, I'm going to kill you? Madness is this now. Absolutely not. So from that, the human spirit is being awakened. Or humans are being awakened to embrace the spirit they already are within. That's a better way of putting it.
Mhm.
We already are these things. We already are these loving, unconditional, powerful beings. We don't have to do anything to become them. We already are them.
Mhm.
We have to work at keeping our doubts and our fears away.
Mhm.
That's all we have to do.
And so it sounds like when you were using the analogy of swimming out into the ocean, and I think that this is a really difficult thing for someone who is on the spiritual path and may have that's out of balance, as I'm definitely guilty of that you want to intervene on someone's behalf before they're ready for it, and like how how inappropriate that really can be, but the when you see someone that's hurting, you see someone that's hurting themselves, or that they're struggling, and you want to get in there and help, but like as you said, and I totally agree, you can't force someone to learn something. You can't force it, and so that skill of just being able to be patient is so important, especially now, with this global crisis that I don't know if everyone feels this way, but at least in America for sure, there's so much struggle going on. You want to intervene, you feel a strong compulsion to intervene, and yet try.
Bring on the archetype of the rescuer. Let's all go and rescue.
Right, exactly.
You're talking about the archetypes here.
Yeah.
And the archetype of the rescuer has been really challenged at the moment. Clearly the work I do is the rescuer work. I'm familiar with my archetype. There's a pleaser, and there's the taker, and the user, and the prostitute, and all these archetypes. Carolyn Mace, on her book, The Archetypes, speaks beautifully on this if people want to explore that further. But the archetypes, when we're in that archetype, I want to go and save the world. We know without a shadow of a doubt when you're in the archetype, it's about ego.
Right.
And that's why her work is so cool on the archetypes, Carolyn Mace, MYSS, is that when we recognize what our archetype is, we can say, I'm back in my archetype. No wonder things are jamming. Back off and give people the space to go through their own evolutionary path. It's not up to me to try and accelerate it, because all that happens is I take on their karma, and they don't get to resolve their karma. I take it away from them, and I just load myself up with my own karma. It's bad enough me dealing with my stuff. I don't need your stuff as well. So yeah, and that's I've been slapped about 3 times along my journey doing that. And it's much more comfortable. It's much more comfortable. Let people just do their stuff now, and just be there and literally walk beside them. We don't have to drag them forward. They are quite capable of going forward on their own. We just need to say, it's okay, you can do this. Just hold space, even if it's unspoken space. Just being there.
Yeah, so with my daughter, she's a year and 4 months now. I noticed that, because children are just so much more honest than than people, right? They'll express themselves unabashedly. And so if you were to intervene with other adults, a lot of times they'll kind of like, oh, well, thanks, ha 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 ha, you know. But when she's trying to do something, and if I, you know, depending on the situation, if I intervene, she'll just start crying, right? Like she'll just immediately react in that, like, no, you're interfering with my process. And it's so immediate, it becomes really obvious. Whereas like a lot of, you know, adults, you know, for social graces, they don't give you that immediate feedback to let you know, no, you're interfering with my process. So it's been really enlightening to work with you know, a toddler.
Well, I would say an impeccable mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, again, those little children, little ones, and treasure hercs probably only last about another year or so. And they'll start losing that connection with that true essence of who they are as they conform in this matrix. And they are incredible teachers for us, incredible teachers. And we honor that. And they have this unnerving ability to look right through you. You kind of say, hello, you're looking at them, they're looking straight through you and straight past you at something else. You're thinking, okay, what am I, chopped liver here? What's going on?
Right. Well, you know, when we were talking about the rites of passage and the level of the wisdom of the person initiating is going to determine the quality of that rite of passage. I think about that a lot with my daughter, and you know, I think because it's tricky, right? It's like, how do I give her enough that she can function in the world while also maintaining her creativity and her sovereignty? You know, there's a fine line there, I think.
So Michael, what might help here, again, go back to this model here, where am I? This conformance and compliance here. So that there's got a dotted line and it's saying society's expectations of us. Now, what I say here is the stuff which is above the line. That's important stuff, like, you know, driving on the same side of the road. That's quite handy. We conform and comply to that little rule. That's useful stuff. Stuff below the line is, to me, is petty tyrant material. The whole thing about same-sex marriage. Who does it serve having that rule? It certainly doesn't. It just serves the power brokers. Doesn't serve anyone else. In the old days, and so it's how do we discern what's above the line as a parent? Say that's the guidance.
Just to be clear to everybody, you mean to exclude same-sex marriage?
Well, below the line is to control who can be married to whom, and exclude to say, oh no, you can't marry someone of the same sex. Who on earth does that serve other than to steal power through frustration, anger, resentment, that louche energy again? Others. Same thing with racism. Who does that serve other than to make people feel bad about themselves and steal energy from them to feed off them? So these are just energy thieving things. So control mechanisms below the line, to me, are energy thieving, controlling, add actually no value to the individual's life. It's that separation. But above the line are very useful things. I'd say the typical one is all drive the same side of the road, pretty useful.
Right.
And so on. And so it's how do we discern what is what? And the people who, a lot of activists will just have a blanket thing, we will not obey any rules, period. Well, that's not really useful.
Right.
That's just anger. That's sitting down here, conforming to someone's view of anger. And so the activist is here and the ambassador is there on this model. And so how do we get to that place of grace when someone says, look, Michael, please, can you help me with the dishes tonight? I'm not really feeling well. Say, yeah, that's not my job, it's your job. As opposed to saying, okay, there's grace in that, certainly let me give you a hand, and so on. It's that kind of, how does one do that? And to me, that's a spiritual quality and a spiritual component, and allowing that wisdom to come through, as opposed to the ego saying, I don't want to do this, or I'm going to control you through doing this. And that's how that model, and I write about that as well. And so you as a father teaching your daughter what is it? What is the conformance issues important for her to be able to function within this world as a whole human being, but not to so much control you suppress her as a sovereign human being.
Mhm. So I'm looking at the cover of your book, and I want to ask you a question about this. So the title is "Your Return to Freedom,"
Mhm.
and when I think of freedom, I think of this, sovereign acting out in the world, and yet the subtitle is "Finding Lasting Inner Peace," and that would be an internal experience. So are you saying that being free in the world outside is the same as having peace inside?
Unless you're completely at peace within yourself, how can you be at peace with the world?
I guess I would see that not as the same, because you could accept the world the way it is and then still also not feel free in the world.
Okay, that's giving power away. That's not freedom.
Hmm.
That's called capitulation, accepting the world as it is because I feel powerless to do anything about it.
Hmm.
That's capitulation, as opposed to surrendering to spirit within to bring me that place of inner peace. That place. The paradox here is when you're completely in the place of inner peace is when you're your most powerful.
Hmm.
And in that place of most powerful, as long as it comes from a place of inner peace, you have no need to act out on that power.
Hmm.
You can't be the bully. It's impossible when you're in that place of pure power and inner peace. To be a bully is a place of ego.
Hmm.
It just doesn't work. So I say to people, find that place of inner peace, find that place where, as far as we can, we're born on planet Earth to go through our various experiences. But we do our best at an individual level without any judgment around how we're doing. But we try and take responsibility for that. And as going back to the news stuff, I had to take responsibility for switching the TV off for 3 months. If I didn't do that, I would have gone mad.
Hmm.
Okay, with so much judgment, so much criticism, so much discrimination. They're bad people. And so it carries on. So doing that brought that place of inner peace. I could then re-engage with the world and see it for a very different view from what it was before. And then through discernment, I can say that resonates or that makes absolutely no sense at all. Let's sit with it and see where this goes.
So it sounds like the focus on inner peace and cultivating that inner peace, that the experience of freedom is like the fallout of that, is the okay. So I guess the reason why I want to articulate that is, it's not that you want to contrive a sense of freedom out in the world by dominating other people, obviously, as much as you want to cultivate that inner sense of peace, and then the freedom is a result of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
So so then of course the $1 million question is, from where anyone might be right now, what would you give them in the most accessible piece of advice to go to that inner peace?
Don't try and go there in one step.
Okay.
Take a little bit at a time. And the most powerful word for getting there is no. N-O.
Mm.
Form those boundaries, those barriers, not to hurt others, but to create a sense of well-being for oneself. And just do it very little bit at a time. Little bit, little bit, little bit. We don't have to conquer the world in one day. And we keep on doing that, it almost exponentially becomes that sense of rebuilding our power. Because when we give away our power, we give away our power when we drop into low vibrational frequencies, anger, resentment, stuff like that. And a no can be as like, no, I'm not going to buy into that narrative. Simple as that. It doesn't make sense. What the news is telling me does not make sense. No. I don't have to know what the answer is. That's not important for now. I just have to know that doesn't make sense. Simple no. And I don't need to dwell on it. I don't need to indulge in it because I'm not going to fix the problem anyway. So just say no. And then someone else may be badgering you, and you'll get a sense, are they trying to draw energy from you to empower themselves? Below the line stuff? Or are they actually badgering you because they need your support and your help because you've got high vibrational frequency, learning to say no to the lower vibrational stuff and be available for the higher vibrational stuff. But just slowly, slowly, slowly. It's an incremental thing. And there's no rush to get there. You don't do it this lifetime, you do it the next lifetime. No rush. But just take responsibility for putting one foot in front of the other. That lovely African parable or metaphor, what do you want to call it, story is, how do you cook an elephant? You can't shove the whole elephant into the pot. So you cut it into little bite-sized pieces. You've got to cook a piece at a time until the whole elephant's cooked. Same thing with the journey to freedom, to inner peace. Something triggers you, say, okay, what has triggered me? I don't want to have, I'm triggered by the whole world. Well, you can't do much about that. Say, that particular thing triggered me. What's that about? And it's just having a little win is incredibly empowering. It's not a win against the ego. It's a win about saying, no, I don't allow that to come in anymore. I really don't. That's not who I am. I don't want that low vibrational frequency. It's not okay. And not punching the other person because that's just a reaction thing, but removing oneself from the space, just removing oneself slowly, slowly. And as you do that, it creates the void for light to enter and a much brighter future to enter. Because if we don't create that space, it's not going to come in.
So if someone they hear this and they're like, okay, that sounds amazing, but I feel a resistance, I feel lazy, or I feel a procrastination.
Yeah. Like I have here, it's on page 152, a simple little chart here, and I'll just read out the first one, for example. And this is about use. It's called Affirming Yourself to Freedom, the chapter or the section. Do you find yourself blaming others for your circumstances in life? That's the first question. If the answer is, well, maybe, okay, the affirmation, I know there are no mistakes, everything is exactly as it should be. And if we just practice that for 1 or 2 days, and that's all, nothing else, it takes away the charge that I'm a victim.
And so you're saying that the book is full of questions that sting?
Yeah, well, the book is written. The first part is, how did we get into this mess? The second part is, what are the model we're going to use for getting out of it? And the third part is, where am I in the process and what do I need to do personally to find that place of inner peace? That's how it was structured. So it's not a novel. It's kind of it's a workbook.
Yeah.
And, the stuff's not hard, Michael. Somehow we make it hard as humans. I'm not sure why. That part remains a mystery to me. Are we addicted to misery and suffering? I'm not sure what's going on here. That remains a mystery.
I think we are. I think that, aside from the self-sabotage issue that we were talking about, in my experience, what I've noticed is that the lack of context is terrifying. So if I don't feel an us versus them, then what am I? Where do I exist in the universe? And I have nothing to push off of. And so that preference to have the counterbalancing tension of inside, outside, and enemy and friends and all that, it's psychologically safe.
Where do you think that all came from?
I don't know, embedded tribalism from 10,000 years ago, maybe. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure where it came from, but I'm saying that that's something that I felt, was that in experiences where I was released from various burdens of dichotomies and all these things, the initial reaction is like, oh shit, like it's that sense of being way out into the ocean, nothing to grab onto. I'm at the mercy of this much, much, much larger power. And, and then of course that provokes a skill to float and to swim, but initially it's terrifying.
Yeah. The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suddenly I'm naked. The mask I've been wearing and the armor I've been wearing has been taken off me. I stand naked before you, and that's incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because I'm terrified of being judged. Well, guess what? If we're all doing that, that's got a pretty sad set of affairs.
Yeah.
But to keep people in that place of fear is what the Matrix is about. That's its job. Because you can control them, performance compliance. Keep them in that place of fear. And it's how do we overcome that fear? Just on that standing naked metaphor, you go to a nudist beach. If you're the only one there wearing clothes, you look pretty stupid. And everyone else is naked. And they will look at you saying, what's wrong with this person? You take your clothes off, takes 10 minutes of self-consciousness. And then thereafter, you feel completely, hey, no one's paying attention to me. What's wrong with me? But hey, that's absolutely normal. It's actually not hard to do this stuff. That's the point. We just have these inbuilt fears, and you're right. And their tribalism is a good expression of that. We are told we need to define ourselves by our fears. I bet your little daughter, when she was first born,
I didn't catch that last bit.
I bet your daughter, when she was first born, didn't have these fears. And depending on how you as parents parent her, depending on what she's exposed to within society and around her and what she gets to read on social media and other media platforms, she'll develop fears. Because we've been told we need to define who we are through what we fear, not what we love.
Yeah, this reminds me of something that society's not great at this. We're getting better, but when someone is self-expressed, that we don't try to stifle them, but we actually celebrate that. And I think about that with myself, and I because for most of my life I thought I'm not a good singer, and I'm just extraordinarily embarrassed to sing in front of anybody. And then I thought, you know what? Oh, I'm still not a great singer, but if I can sing in public, what kind of great service am I doing to all the other people that feel terrified of expressing themselves? And so I kind of use that as a way of getting myself to be more vulnerable in front of people. And I think, if it's singing, if it's, poetry, whatever vulnerable expression that you have, it's an underrated quality that you're offering to the people around you to be vulnerable, because you're allowing that space for them as well.
Absolutely. And I think this brings up, that's where mentors can be incredibly valuable in that process, to say, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to stand up there. It's okay if that person laughs at you, because all they're doing is laughing at their own vulnerabilities within themselves. And that's where it comes in. The movie Dead Poet Society is great around that as well, Robin Williams. But society hates it. So in that movie, at the end, was very sad how it ended. So society, or the Matrix, hates people who stand out, because they feel threatened by them. You're not conforming. Who do you think you are? And fortunately, in the US is probably one of the leading country acknowledging and recognizing individual success. Countries like Australia and New Zealand are probably one of the worst. Tall poppy syndrome. You even have a name for it. You mow the top, the plant poppy grows taller in the field, and they mow the thing down. How dare you grow taller? And that's two countries. The Americans just can't get their head around it. Why on earth would you want to do that? So So that's why I think in the US there's great opportunity for people to excel, and we're seeing a lot of leadership. Somehow that's being exploited by these negative forces now through fear-based stuff. And if we can just, again, through the right leadership, it's okay doing it for the right reason. Don't let others tear you down. Don't let others tell you you're not worthy, that you can't dodge bullets, going back to the Matrix and not to the events of the last week. And, you know, so you see how these metaphors all work out in real life. And so in one respect, we are invincible at a soul level, but let's not bring that into egotistic bragging at the physical level. Yeah, and as the movie The Matrix said, if you die in the Matrix, well, you die in the other world. So we honor that, but we do not define ourselves purely by the physicality. We say at the soul level, we are immortal. And how do we claim that? With you, paradox sitting in there, and how do we balance in that paradox and be able to be in both places equally comfortably at the same time?
Well, that's a great question. I guess we'll just leave that one on the table for everybody to think about. It was great chatting with you. I know since you left our beautiful island, I haven't been able to talk with you as much. So I'm glad I lured you into a conversation for this purpose. It's great to see you.
You too, Michael. And it's good to see that the amount you've changed as well in finding that inner sense of who you are, and becoming a father, of course, is a big part of that. And having a beautiful wife which takes none of your crap also helps.
Yeah, I'm trying to get her on here too. Yeah, that's a process.
Yeah, no, she should be. I look forward to seeing how well you do with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, great seeing you, and yeah, keep up the good work. You know, you have a good story to share, and you have a way of being able to connect in with people who are walking the same path you are walking and have walked. And so use that. That's a gift you've got.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
So I will.
Sorry, our link here is busy freezing, so maybe we are being told it's time to close this down.
To wrap.
All right.